Well, here we are down at Lake Balaton, and today I'm with my friend Dave Costello, and we're going to review this album from 1983, Pipes of Peace, from Paul McCartney. But here we are, I'm with Dave Costello again, and we're making our video down at Lake Balaton. So this album was released, I think, late October, early November '83, Dave.
Yep. Interesting album for me because this is the was around this time that was the first time I met Paul McCartney. I've met him twice, and the first time was just after he'd finished making the Pipes of Peace video. So he had a very short haircut, and I was hanging around outside Air Studios in Oxford Street in the West End of London, and we'd been told that he was in there finishing off some work on one of the tracks, and I think we spent 4 hours waiting outside, and then all of a sudden at about 5:30 in the evening, suddenly McCartney appeared, I think on his own, don't think anyone was with him, came out into the Oxford Street hustle and bustle, nobody noticed him, and there were about 4 of us who got him to had a chat and got an autograph. And
Which you've now lost.
I've lost, yeah. It was on the back of a cheque, and I said, "Would you mind signing this, please, Paul?" And he said, "As long as it's not the front." And he signed the back, and over the course of the years, I lost it. I think it got thrown out by my parents. So, yeah. So good memories associated with this album, actually, for me.
Yeah, and I think I said in an earlier interview, it came out at the same time as 3 other albums, favourite artists of ours, like Bob Dylan's Infidels and Paul Simon's Hearts and Bones and Rolling Stone's Undercover. So, how should we do this? Should we talk about our initial reactions and then how we've looked at it over the years, or?
Yeah, a bit about the context of it, I guess, as well, because it was the follow-up to Tug of War, wasn't it? Which was you've reviewed already, great album, and I always think of this. I think this was the Tug of War 2, wasn't it? Also thought of, and what was the other title you said?
Hug for Love.
Hug for Love. So it was a kind of compliment to Tug of War, and in some ways, I think it kind of suffers from some of the tracks. It feels like the leftovers from Tug of War. So the best bits went into Tug of War, and
yeah,
bit of a mixed bag.
And produced by George Martin, who had produced Tug of War and would also produce Broad Street, but I think it's one of those cases of diminishing returns, because he was very effective on Tug of War. He's quite effective, as we were listening in the car just now. Some of the production on this is quite good, but it's not quite on the same level as.
No, it's very 80s production. We were listening to the remastered CD in the car, and it's very pleasant on the ear, I must say. It is 80s production, but George Martin's string arrangements, they certainly give it a real warmth, and and I think that it's very pleasant sounding album in lots of ways.
So the basis of the album was leftovers from the Tug of War sessions, so we'll point out which ones they are, which ones that we think they are as we go through the tracks. But the title track, Pipes of Peace, which opens the album, a very strong video to go with this, World War I trenches, was a song recorded, I think, a bit later on than most of the others, and it's commercial, but I really like it. It was the #1 hit for Paul, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's actually grown over the years too, because it's a fantastic sentiment which the video underlines about the true story. You've talked about this before, where the German and the English troops played football for several hours. They came out of their trenches and played football on Christmas Day. Great video, and the song is it's a very Christmassy song. It gets played regularly on British radio around Christmas time, and it's definitely got some of that Christmas feel to it.
Yeah, it's quite kind of hard to conjure up a Christmas feel at midsummer in Lake Balaton, but good opener.
Yeah.
Next track, his first collaboration. Well, actually, he contributed a song he sang with Michael on "The Girl Is Mine," which was on the Thriller album, which I think was the first collaboration, and this is the second. Say, 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 a song written by Paul, and Michael shares the lead vocals, and they did a video, and it was a big hit. But I didn't really. I wasn't very happy that they collaborated, and I don't think it's a great song. I've never really liked it.
It's never been one of my favourites, but I must say when the re-release came with the different vocals, for some reason I think McCartney was handling Michael Jackson's vocals and the other way round. Maybe it was an early version. I actually preferred that version to the original version. It sounded just sounded better. I'm not sure if it was because it was novel. It was something I'd not heard before, but to me it actually sounded better.
Yeah, I don't think Paul. I think the difference with that version, I think it is novelty. I think Michael just sings more of the lead. I think Paul's hardly singing any of the lead on that.
Seemed to be more harmonica on it, perhaps, on the released version. But yeah, it was a popular single, and it was the first, one of the first videos, along with Thriller, I think, to have a story to it that before the song started. Yeah.
You don't want to tell the story, do you?
Not particularly. Is there much of a story to it? Medicine show in the Wild West and that kind of thing.
Personally, I don't listen to this song much. But anyway, the album continues with The Other Me, which is a decent enough song. Perhaps infamous for its line, I acted like a dustbin lid. What was it to rhyme with?
Well, it's Liverpool rhyming slang, which means a kid. A dustbin lid is a kid, so I acted like a stupid kid. And dustbin lid was also used, that slang, on Cilla Black's song Liverpool Lullaby. And so it's a bit more forgivable when you hear that it was Liverpool slang, but it does kind of indicate a slight lowering in quality of lyrics, would you say, in this album? It's McCartney kind of coasting lyrically on quite a few songs.
Either way, I think.
Compared to Tug of War, where I think some of the songs were really quite meaningful and Somebody Who Cares and Here Today, both real vulnerability and honesty. And here he's kind of slipped back into what Paul is often criticised for doing, of having kind of trite, meaningless lyrics.
Yeah.
And there are probably fair share of lyrics a bit like that on this album, I have to say.
But the album recovers nicely with Keep Undercover, which musically is very strong, and we were thinking maybe it should have gone on to the Tug of War album. And again, the words are nothing to write home about, but nice production from George Martin.
So yeah, Keep Undercover, definitely good George Martin string arrangements. It's quite a good song. It's got a lot of momentum to it. Nice middle eight. It's not a bad track. I think it would have been better. Would have sounded better if it had been in good company with Tug of War. It might have sounded kind of gone quite well with tracks like The Pound Is Sinking.
So side one finishes with So Bad, very sentimental slushy ballad, but lovely and beautifully sung by Paul in a falsetto vocal. He actually asked Smokey Robinson to do this for The Art of McCartney, or Smokey Robinson was asked, and he didn't do a very good version, which was surprising. So Paul's falsetto really works here.
Yeah, it's a lovely track actually. It is syrupy McCartney, but it's a treat on the ears, and lovely lyrics actually. I think quite simple, straightforward, lovely bass line. Yeah.
The inner sleeve, by the way, pictures of various people are on the album, including Ringo and Eric Stewart, but Denny Lane is not pictured here. Note.
I have to say, I think the cover was probably one of McCartney's worst covers to date. That's awful. Particularly that, but that's just got no focus, has it? What does it mean? It's just horrendous cover.
So we'll spin over the record to side two, and it starts off with the second McCartney-Jackson collaboration, The Man, and this is more commercial fodder and not very memorable in my opinion. It was nearly a single and withdrawn at the last minute. But I think one if you're going to have a collaboration, I think it should be kept on singles, Dave. What do you think, rather than on albums?
Good point. Yeah, it does tend to weaken an album, I think, maybe when you have additional vocal collaborations.
Yeah,
it would have been a good single. I guess I'd always like to hear what Michael Jackson fans think of The Man. Do they like it? It's quite a happy song, but I certainly wouldn't have it on a compilation album. Sorry to say.
So we follow it up with, in fact, side 2 is really not a song as strong as side 1, as is often the case. So Sweetest Little Show is a Tug of War reject, and nothing very special about this. Some nice Spanish guitar in the middle, but as a song, pretty forgetful.
Yeah, it's one of those things that he does where he segues tracks together, and I always think that's a bit of a sign of unfinished songs. And I think McCartney does that, and this is, I think, side 2 of Pipes of Peace is really where we get maybe four tracks in a row which feel like they really are the leftovers on the cutting room floor of Tug of War. Sweetest Little Show. It's got a nice McCartney acoustic twiddle, that Blackbird harmonic guitar line that he plays pretty well. That's quite nice, but it's a throwaway song, really.
Yeah. Which brings us a nice segue from that song into Average Person, which is probably one of the better songs on side 2, I think. It's kind of got wacky vocals, a bit reminiscent of Ram in the middle, and fairly amusing words. Not a bad track, nothing to write home about. I think this did date from Tug of War as well. Anything to add?
Not really.
And then we have a pointless instrumental called Hey Hey, with the only purpose of which is to showcase Stanley Clarke on bass, which is about the definition of pointless, really.
It just sounds like the theme tune of a TV show. It really shouldn't have been on the album, I don't think.
And then a weak follow-up, or kind of pun on Tug of War, Tug of Peace, with weird instrumentation, and again, just a doodle, really.
Yeah. Low point of the album, I'm afraid.
Which brings us on to the closer, Through Our Love, which is actually a decent ballad, but following those two abominations, it kind of gets lost at the end of this album, when we were saying maybe should have been a better closer to Tug of War instead of Ebony and Ivory.
Yeah, it's quite a majestic song, actually. George Martin's strings, I'm presuming, are pretty wonderful. And it's almost marred by the company it keeps on this album. And Through Our Love, think about the closing tracks he had on albums in the 80s. There was, Motor of Love, I was thinking of as the closing track of Flowers. Come On People, but Only Love Remains, another kind of string ballad at the end of Press to Play. But this is probably the best of the three, Through Our Love. And to me, when you hear the strings, it's very similar to Tug of War, the title track. And it would have made a perfect kind of bookend at the end of Tug of War. And we talked then about taking off Ebony and Ivory.
Yeah,
should have maybe been
taking off the other Stevie Wonder collaboration and putting Keep Undercover in its place, perhaps.
Yeah, but we're talking about parallel universe albums, so Pipes of Peace, anyway.
It doesn't quite hold its weight as an album on its own, and it's frustratingly uneven, which a lot of people would accuse all of Paul's albums of being, but I think this more so than the others. It really is quite weak material in parts and quite annoying material in others, but there's enough golden nuggets on here to make it warrant a few listens, a few re-listens.
Definitely, yeah. And the track I play probably more often than any of the other tracks is So Bad, actually. I do think is it's a really good McCartney song.
Good. Do we want to end with a controversial ranking or not bother?
Yeah.
Mark out of 10?
Yeah, it's a 6 from me. And it's because it marks the beginning of McCartney's descent into 80s mediocrity, for which he wouldn't regain until Flowers in the Dirt.
I thought you were going to give it a 7 or a 7.5 there. I'm a bit shocked. Okay, yeah, 6.5 is reasonable, I think. Certainly no worse than that. Thank you for watching.